morning, this is Daybreak, and thank you for making time for the broadcast. The hashtag on X, formerly Twitter, is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. The accounts of young Kenyans this morning here on the broadcast will be tailored towards values. And where are these values in Kenya from the perspectives of young Kenyans? They include love, dedication, proper governance, upon which the prosperous nation or a prosperous nation is built, which informs the moral strength of any nation across the world. We'll be taking the account this morning here on the broadcast, and we welcome you as well, and we'll be sampling your feedback in the course of this broadcast. The Daily Nation is the front page. We start with the front page of the Daily, starting off with the Daily Nation, and it's a continuation of the changes made by President William Ruto to his cabinet on Wednesday night, and says end of the honeymoon for most of President William Ruto's loyalists who are cabinet members. And the paper further continues saying it was a warning shot in the red line. President William Ruto's surprise move to demote some of his loyalists on Wednesday night's Cabinet Reshuffle has been seen as a signal that no one is indispensable in his administration. And the head of statesmen yesterday said their boss wouldn't hesitate to sack those who failed to deliver on his government's promises and the manifesto that he launched before he was accorded the mandate. Pictures of Moses Kuria, who was moved to the public service docket. Dr. Alfred Mutua moved from foreign affairs to tourism. Ababu Namwamba lost the arts culture. Zachary Njeru moved to water. Penina Malonza moved to the East African community. And Paul Kiprono-Rono, the former PS at the Ministry of Water, moved to crops, are incorporated on the front page of the Daily Nation. It says the message to those who care to listen is that they are now on their own, and a picture of President William Ruto also embodied in that. Telkom Kenya and the questions that linger over the mystery Emirati firm. The sale of Telkom Kenya continues to lurch from one controversy to the next, revealing that the company that will now own 60% stake in Telco did not have any online presence until last month. That story is on page number 5. Kenyans made 130 reverse calls in a year, says Safaricom. Interesting story on page number 14. And the Pope makes call for renewable energy on matters climate change on page number 2. Book serialization is starting tomorrow on the Daily Nation, and the secrets of President's personal doctor on page number 10, and the accounts given by Dr. David Silverstein, who was President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi's personal physician, and says a turning point in his career was when he first met the Vice President, then Daniel Arap Moi, in 1977. Failed attempts by 2 doctors to save Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's life, a sinister assassination plot, and fresh details on how President Moi the late maneuvered intense succession intrigues to rise to power in 1978 following the demise of the founding father Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. On matter security, elite squad sent to Sondu, and amid the clash that continues between the counties of Kisumu and Kericho at the border point, that is, following deadly attack amid blame game by local leaders and politicians. And the government bans maize and wheat importation and a relief for farmers. That story is on page number 8 of the publication. Moving to the front headline of the day is the Standard newspaper. Hard question, says the paper, in Telkom Kenya sale. Still a story that appears as the splash on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Treasury CS Njuguna Ndongo's announcement that a strategic partner has been found to take over Telkom Kenya, as a majority shareholder has opened a Pandora's box on how government conducted the business. That story is on page number 8 of the publication further highlighted, and the questions arising on the government's decision to sell Telkom Kenya's stake to Emirati firm. And this was due process following the sourcing of the investor. Was Cabinet aware of the developments before Tuesday's decision? And those are some of the questions that continue to come up in the move made by the Kenya Kwanza administration, which was initially a decision made by the Kenyatta administration before it left power. And in May this year, it said the investment banker John Ngumi moved to the High Court and obtained an injunction barring the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission from arresting him. The intrigues behind the sale continue and more questions arise with the mention of telco than answers. A cabinet decision on Tuesday this week rescinded the nationalization of Telecom Kenya, and that the decision offers Telecom Kenya an opportunity to source and onboard another strategic investor subject to the receipt of all the regulatory approvals. Also on the front page of the Standard newspaper, unity calls rise in Mount Kenya after reshuffle, and leaders from the region say that signs are imminent that if they continue squabbling, they might lose big in government. Pictures of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, Moses Kuria, Alice Wahome and Rebecca Miano also highlighted on the downside of the paper. Why hoarding dollars will soon be a crime. That story is on page number 10, and it's a proposal by Rongo MP, who says in the proposal that 1 million Kenya shillings fine or 10 years in jail if someone is found holding onto foreign currency. Tribal clashes rock Ruto Nyanza tour starting today on Friday on page number 5. And the Teacher Service Commission fits top tutors in World Teachers Day yesterday on page number 4. Race for America's speaker hots up in the United States of America on World News page number 24. And England prepare for last dance on sports page number 36. And what is in the pipeline for the Three Lions in the United Kingdom. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Here are the highlights this morning. CS Kindiki transfers police officials who allegedly took sides in the clashes. Moses Kuria welcomes transfer to public service docket, says he will coordinate ministries. Civil societies declare planned police deployment to Haiti unlawful. Special team coverage on Ruto's first cabinet reshuffle. Let's begin on that note. Months of speculation and waiting finally came to an end. And on Wednesday night, President William Ruto announced his first cabinet reshuffle that comes just a year into office. Our extensive team coverage looks into the details of the changes announced in a late-night statement from State House, Nairobi. Our team will take you through the line-by-line analysis of the changes, starting with President William Ruto's objective in announcing the changes that affected 8 cabinet ministers. Chamutai Goin is on the board picture view of the cabinet reshuffle.
It was the longest-running speculation in Kenya's political circles, and predictions bore the promise of an administrative hurricane. Specific heads were assigned the chopping board, and when the State House statement landed in newsrooms, some political speculators certainly hit the jackpot.
Next in line, Your Excellency, is Honorable Penina Malonza.
Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Penina Malonza featured the most in the speculation, and in the communication from State House, she was moved to the Asals and East Africa Community docket, initially under Rebecca Miano. Water Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome was also among those moved. She was swapped with her lands counterpart Zachary Njeru. Wahome was seemingly overcome by the turbulent Maji House waters arising from the controversy surrounding a probe over reported irregularities at the Athi Water Works Development Agency and Central Rift Valley Water Works Development Agency, where its CEOs were suspended. The probe resulting in a tug of war between Wahome and her PS Kiprono Rono. Also reassigned was Public Service CS Aisha Jumwa, whose approval started a heated debate as her education credentials were questioned. The Ministry of Gender was hived out from Public Service, while the dockets of Youth and Culture were pulled out of the Sports Ministry and placed under Aisha Jumwa. Jumwa was among cabinet nominees whose nomination to cabinet was rejected by the Committee on Appointments.
The people of Kenya are the ultimate employers.
But the signs of the looming reshuffle were evident during the signing of performance contracts by cabinet secretaries.
Explain to me how you are going to advise me if you have less information than I do. Who is going to be advising who? I call many PSs. You ask them what's going on here. They have no clue.
The president's reshuffle, however, did not depart from the trend set by his predecessors, where despite admitting the incompetence of some of his picks, instead of directly firing them, he instead moved them to other ministries. Fear of political repercussions in the backyards of the appointees is considered the factor behind this trend. In the changes, however, the president did not cause a disruption in ministries that are directly linked to the management of the economy. Ministries such as the National Treasury, Energy, Transport and Agriculture. Pollsters had also fired the first bullet, opinion polls having ranked the cabinet secretaries poorly, most of them getting a D grade. These directly also affecting President William Ruto's ratings. And though the performance contracts will be reviewed next year, August, it seems the president decided to drain the swamp in advance. Exactly 1 year, 1 month and 2 weeks into his term in office, President William Ruto has effected changes in his administration, changes that seem to be largely informed by politics and administrative performance. In his 22-member cabinet, 8 dockets were affected in a review that has seen the contentious position of Prime Cabinet Secretary expanded.
Having been appointed Prime Cabinet Secretary.
For his entire 1 year as Prime Cabinet Secretary, few Kenyans imposed any duty, and even fewer accused Musalia Mudavadi of any responsibility. Few Kenyans understood his role, and opinion polls overwhelmingly disapproved of the existence of the position of Prime Cabinet Secretary in the first place. But now Musalia Mudavadi has landed a substantive role in cabinet. When Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi took oath of office on October 27, 2022, he cut a lonely image amidst a parade with his 22 colleagues at the lawns of State House, Nairobi. By then, Musalia Mudavadi was hanging on a thin executive order by President Ruto that assigned him the role of assisting the president and his deputy in coordinating and supervising government ministries and state departments. In the same executive order, Mudavadi was to chair and coordinate national government legislative agenda across all ministries, chair the principal secretaries' committees, and perform any other functions as may be assigned by the president. Despite the raft of roles placed on his shoulders, Kenyans still had an overwhelming disapproval of the office of Prime Cabinet Secretary. President Ruto has been assigning Mudavadi to represent him in various functions outside the country, cutting an image of a foreign affairs cabinet secretary from the word go.
This is my brother. This is my brother.
Mudavadi, who joined parliament while he was only 28 years of age, has been seen to be a heavyweight with a vast cabinet experience. He has served as minister in various capacities in the then President Moi's government and became KANU's last vice president. After transitioning to the Kibaki government, he served in various ministries, including being deputy prime minister and minister for local government in the Grand Coalition government. During Wednesday cabinet reshuffle, President William Ruto expanded Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi's ministerial portfolio, assigning him the plum foreign affairs docket. This means Mudavadi now has a substantive cabinet role and replaces Dr. Alfred Mutua, who was deployed to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife to become the country's chief diplomat. However, Mudavadi has equally suffered a blow in the changes. The president cropped the performance management docket from the Prime Cabinet Secretary's office, now under Moses Kuria. Mudavadi has been described as a gentleman of Kenya's politics. He is cool-headed, mild-mannered, not a protocol risk, and not new to foreign policy. Many now await to see how Mudavadi will maneuver around fine diplomacy, and if he will reverse a directive to have all ambassadors and head of missions report to respective ministries that has been seen as a contravention to the Vienna convention. Mudavadi will now play a critical role in the country's foreign policy, as well as management of all Kenya's missions and embassies across the world. A cabinet career that began in Moi's government and transitioned to the Kibaki administration makes a return. Mudavadi takes up the Foreign Cabinet Secretary, a position and ministry that is yearning for reorganization in both protocol and diplomatic conduct. Diplomatic observers say this is a ministry that is yearning and wants back its voice.
From the outset, he was regarded an underweight and a diplomatic outsider, and he looked disproportionately the part whenever paired with foreign affairs beasts like Russia's Sergei Lavrov, who towered the photographic space like a bullish school principal. And that imagery described his tenure at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, one that has been short, unsettled, and visibly unstable.
I thank her also for the smooth transition and the wonderful team that is.
His handling of the docket tested the limits of both diplomatic mannerism and protocols. A picture of the CS holding hands with the foreign heads of state raised questions on diplomatic etiquette in a docket that is heavily governed by strict global norms and customs. His pronouncements also tested the boundaries of the highly prescriptive culture of diplomacy. He often spoke off the cuff, even on matters as grave as the planned deployment of Kenyan police units to Haiti.
Haiti looked around and said, Kenya, please help us. Then it has many other countries, they came to Kenya. They said, Kenya, you have a history of helping other nations. Kenya.
Mutua also heavily deployed his social media pages and the execution of his foreign ministry duties, and they were grave online misses as manifested by a misleading announcement of job opportunities in Canada. This announcement was formally denounced in what amounts to a diplomatic embarrassment. In his short stint along the Harambee Avenue, the state of relations with his boss, President Ruto, were never clear. On several occasions, the foreign secretary was left out of foreign trips by the president. This was interpreted as a sign of the president's speculated low confidence in the now former foreign affairs boss. He leaves the address on Harambee Avenue without having resolved the Saudi labor issue, one of the key deliverables he had set for himself when he took over at the ministry.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your questions. And you need any more?
The politician turned diplomat first served in government as its spokesperson in the late President Kibaki's government before turning to politics as the first governor of Machakos for 2 terms. He shelved his presidential ambition in the last general election to support President William Ruto, and his reward was the influential foreign affairs docket. And off to tourism, Dr. Alfred Mutua goes after a stint at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that generated a mixed scorecard. Mutua scored high on optics and air miles, but questions abound as to his style of management at one of the most traditional ministries in government. And just like Mutua, the CS for Trade, Moses Kuria, is also on the move. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
As Cabinet Secretary Trade, Moses Kuria was a dead man walking. Mysteriously left out of crucial foreign trade tours, Kuria was clinging on straws, leaning on local assignments to which he dedicated enormous energies, openly abrasive and divisive, speaking from a hymn sheet that was at odds with the office he held as a state officer, and whose duties include advancing national unity. Kuria was omitted from President William Ruto's recent visit to the United States, and his predecessor Adan Mohammed inadvertently introduced to tech heads and bureaucrats in New York and Washington as the Trade Secretary. It is not yet clear why Kuria, whose foreign travels appeared confined to state assignments in the Middle East and Africa, was left out of the president's entourage. And on his last assignment in the county of Garissa, for the groundbreaking of the Garissa County Aggregation and Industrial Park, Kuria was upbeat about his new ministerial role.
Akuja nani na nani, mimi kazi nitaendelea kutuanga, nitaendelea kujorosha Kenya. And if you don't like me, anza kuadikia, I can bet one thing. Wale wanasherekea ati mimi nilitolewa kwa hii wizara. Within 6 months, wataanza kwenda kwa rais kumwambia ai amezidi sana mtoe hapa tena. They will be asking for another reshuffle in 6 months time. Wallahi, I promise you.
In the third docket, Kuria easily courted controversy by combining contentious viewpoints with a sharp tongue. On the ministerial assignment front, Kuria assigned the edible oil importation to the Kenya National Trading Corporation, with contracts awarded to individuals said to enjoy close ties to government. When he appeared before the Senate in June, Kuria was at pains to explain his formula to award companies the award letters to import fertilizer and edible oils.
15A, if you look at 22 pre-qualified entities, there is a supplier by the name First Quality Supplies Limited, who supplied 25 metric tons of fertilizer not listed in the 22 pre-qualified suppliers. How did he end up giving contract of 22 metric tons, 25,000 metric tons to this supplier without pre-qualification? Thank you.
Honorable Sears.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to defer that question until the next round of questions so that I can be able to make some consultation.
Kuria's penchant for oral cluster bombing spared no one, including the media.
Nyinyi watu wa media kusema Nation Media muamue kama nyinyi ni gazeti ama broadcasting house ama media house ama ni chama cha upinzani.
Responding to the public outrage that greeted the latest sharp rise in fuel prices, the highest ever in Kenya, Kuria walked yet again on the path of public disagreeable.
Kenya haitaendelea kwa kuweka sufuria kwa kichwa. Sasa ukishinda kutoka ya asubuhi mpaka jioni, bei ya mafuta imeongezeka, si uchipe kisima yako.
It is a statement that shocked, among others, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who warned that the language of some leaders was insulting of the public. But Kuria's verbal political speed governor was to be tested soon after. Energy and controversy characterized his stint at the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry. And as Moses Kuria moves to the public service docket, opinion remains divided over whether this was gain or loss. But as for several political and administrative figures, as well as career diplomats, it was all gain as they made to President William Ruto's first list of ambassadorial appointees.
The list of diplomatic appointments followed the beaten path, a sprinkle of seasoned diplomats, a splash of political rewards, and a whiff of scandal combined to produce the much-awaited inaugural list of Kenya's foreign representatives appointed by President William Ruto. Former Agriculture CS Willie Bett has been moved from New Delhi, India to Beijing, China to replace Mary Muthoni, who was recalled in February, having been appointed by former President Uhuru Kenyatta in June 2022. Ambassador Tabu Irina leaves Tokyo, Japan to Dublin, Ireland. Ambassador George Morara Orina, who served as MFA Director General, Bilateral and Political Affairs, has been posted to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, replacing Ambassador Jean Kamau. Ambassador Philip Mundia has been sent to Maputo, Mozambique. Ambassador Isaac Parashina proceeds to Abuja, Nigeria, while Ambassador Frederick Musambili is the new envoy in Rome, Italy. Seasoned foreign affairs staffer Nyarima Solesein was picked to head the Kenyan mission in Spain, while Ambassador Angeline Kavindu will be in Stockholm, Sweden. Ambassador Betty Chebet, who was the chief of protocol at MFA, has been sent to Paris, France, replacing Professor Judy Wahungu, who recently finished her tour of duty. Ambassador Stella Orina has been posted to Berlin, Germany, replacing former political and diplomatic secretary Tom Amolo as ambassador. Jane Wairimu replaces Catherine Mwangi in Pretoria, South Africa. Others include Colonel retired Shem Amadi, who has been nominated for Kinshasa, DRC, Subdio Dido to Gorobode, Botswana, Jeremy Nyamasio; to Juba, Jeremy Laibuta; to the troubled Khartoum, George Makgoe; to Djibouti, and Joyce Kasimwa to Luanda, Angola. Maurice Makolo, who heads to Vienna, Austria, is a reputed technocrat who once served as the head of East Africa Office for the Ford Foundation, the director of the Institute for Law and Environmental Governance, and the secretary to Kenya's Public Complaints Committee on Environment. Others are Janet Mwawasi, who has been sent to Kigali, Rwanda; Masi Mweni to Arusha, Tanzania; Fauzia Abdirahman to Bern, Switzerland; and Professor Peter Ngure to UNESCO, France. Others also include Amy Jerono, who has been posted to Seoul, South Korea; John Ekitela to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia; Wilson Kogo to Canberra, Australia; Mohammed Ramadan, who is going to serve in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Lieutenant General Albert Kendego has been posted to Tel Aviv, Israel, replacing former Air Force Commander Lieutenant General retired Samuel Thuita; and Mohammed Nur Adan, who has been appointed for Doha, Qatar. For the first time in Kenya's history, the country has posted an ambassador to Hargeisa, Somalia, following the appointment of Abdi Weli Muhammad Hussein. Ruto's list also include political figures like former Igembe Central Member of Parliament Kiringo Kubai, who has been posted to Mogadishu, Somalia, and Peter Munyiri, former Family Bank CEO, and a 2022 Nyeri governor candidate who has been appointed to replace Willie Bett as the High Commissioner in New Delhi. Munyiri was acquitted in the National Youth Service graft case in December 2022 of allegations of helping key suspect Josephine Kafura launder 791 million shillings using 3 bank accounts at Family Bank. The case was dropped for lack of proper evidence. Munyiri will be deputized by Terry Ramadhani, the suspended Kenya Medical Supplies Authority CEO. Ramadhani was removed from office under controversial circumstances and the entire board was dissolved. The status of the case remains unknown and the matter unresolved. Ramadhani is among 14 appointees who landed roles as deputy ambassadors in various countries in the latest appointments by President William Ruto. Some untouched territories in Ruto's list include Consulate General of the Republic of Kenya in Los Angeles, USA, Kenya's High Commission to London, United Kingdom, Manoa Esipisu, Embassy of the Republic of Kenya in France, headed by Ambassador Helen Gichuhi, Kenyan Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, the Embassy in Tokyo, Japan, Moscow, Russia, and closer home, the High Commission of the Republic of Kenya in Kampala, Uganda, and Embassy of Republic of Kenya in Bujumbura, Burundi, also remain unchanged. The diplomatic appointments are only a fraction of what is possible, as President William Ruto left intact some of the key missions staffed by appointees of the former administration. Back at home, the office of government spokesperson was also up for some reorganization.
In political terms, he is inching towards the arena of the proverbial cat of 9 lives. Isaac Mwaura is a well-spoken man and is now the new government spokesperson. Mwaura, who has never been elected to any post since he became a nominated MP a decade ago, has risen above all odds and consistently been on the government payroll for the past decade while serving in different capacities. As a seasoned politician with a wealth of experience in politics, Mwaura was in the year 2010 picked as an advisor to the then Prime Minister Raila Odinga. In 2013, he served as a Member of Parliament nominated by the Orange Democratic Movement to represent special interest groups. 5 years later, in 2017, he was nominated as a Jubilee senator but found himself in bad books with party members over perceived disloyalty. This when he publicly announced his political affiliation to the United Democratic Alliance Party. He was accused of dealing with other parties other than the Jubilee Party that sponsored him to Parliament. Prior to the appointment as government spokesperson, Mwaura had been nominated by President William Ruto to serve as Chief Administrative Secretary in the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. The court declared the CAS appointments unconstitutional.
To the public
ethics.
The position of government spokesperson was created by former President Mwai Kibaki's government. Alfred Mutua was appointed the first official government spokesperson in June 2022. With a background in communication and PR, his tenure as government spokesperson kept the country updated on Thursdays through weekly live press briefings in a modern media center. He would often relay information and later be contradicted by government officials, leaving Kenyans confused on what the official government position was on issues. Mutua resigned from the position in 2012 to run for the Machakos County gubernatorial seat. In August 2013, President Uhuru Kenyatta's government shut the government spokesman office and redeployed its holder Muthui Kariuki, who had taken over from Mutua. Uhuru would later appoint former police spokesman and master of spin Eric Kiraithe as the government spokesperson in 2018. The appointment of the senior police officer was to ensure timely, consistent and coordinated communication to the public on matters relating to government agenda. A year later, Kiraithe was replaced by Colonel retired Cyrus Oguna, who had also served as KDF spokesman. The well-spoken ex-military man resigned from the position in 2022 to take up the position of Chief of Staff Siaya County. The position of government spokesperson has been vacant since Oguna's exit until Mwaura's appointment. It is not clear how the position of government spokesperson will fit into government, as communication of the government's agenda comes from State House, which has a spokesperson and a presidential press service. The office of the Deputy President also relays official communication from its communication team. The same applies to key ministries in the country. Isaac Mwaura will be deputized by political commentator and advisor Gabriel Muthuma and journalist Mwanaisha Chizuka.
From botched CAS job to government spokesperson, Isaac Mwaura's political journey can only be described as that of the proverbial cat that has 9 lives. Only time will tell on whether he is well cut out for his new role as government spokesperson. Lillian Muli, Citizen TV.
That report by Lillian Muli concludes our extensive coverage of the Ruto Cabinet Reshuffle and a review which pointed to many extents to the end of honeymoon for some. And with that, we come to the break point here on the broadcast. And after the break on Daybreak, we'll be taking the accounts of young Kenyans. It's Friday, and their perspectives to what's happening in the country generally. And values are key and are fundamental to the growth of any nation. But where are our values as a country? They will tell us more about what's happening from their perspectives and tailored towards what they think ought to be done right to course correct some of the glaring mistakes that the nation is making in terms of leadership, be it at the political level, the economy, and of course the social aspect of it. Many of them, of course, fresh from the universities, some serving in political parties, others contested. Some, of course, have also experience when it comes to the political presence that they have made in the political arena. We'll come back with that discussion here on the broadcast after the break. Stay tuned.